Good morning, good people. Today is January the 11th, 2026. I hope everyone is having a great new year so far and hope your past week went well. And I hope your next week goes exceptionally well as also. I want to come on here today and talk to you guys like I normally do, in which today, like a lot of my past videos have been about is this video will be about the president of the United States, y'all, to where this guy is truly unhinged in his actions. Like I've said before, is going to lead the United States into a war in which many of us we don't want to happen, but this president and the people around him, they truly don't care about what we care about. And it's all about money and power with these guys. And I hate to say this, but because Donald Trump is up in age and he knows he doesn't have a lot of time left on this earth just because he's up in age, that he doesn't mind going to war. And we also have to understand that he's the president of this country, meaning that if a war was to actually be able to make it across the oceans and we be attacked, that he's going to be the first person that's placed into a shelter of sorts to protect him. So he knows for the most part that he'll be protected as well. And we, being the citizens, are going to be the casualties of this war, and also the soldiers that are going to be having to fight for this country are going to be on the front lines and be the first to lose their lives as well. And I say all of this just because we have to look at all of the signs. And the signs and things are being placed right in front of us to where they're leading up to, like I said, a war. In which we all know what recently occurred with Venezuela. What we also have to understand is that Venezuela has the largest oil supply, not just in the western side of the world, but in all of the world. Venezuela has the largest oil supply. It's not Iran, it's not Iraq, it's not Russia, it's not Saudi Arabia, it's not the United States, it's Venezuela. And so with that being said, knowing the greed that comes from Donald Trump, because he's an extremely greedy person. You can see it with all of his business ventures. He's greedy. He just wants more and more. And so with that being said, it only made sense in his mind for him to go in and use, once again, the drugs and the leader of Iran, or not Iran, the leader of Venezuela as an excuse to attack that country in order to take over that country and take over that country's oil supply. And like I say, Venezuela has the largest oil supply in all of the world. So keep that in mind, y'all. And so China is the largest importer of Venezuelan oil. And we all know how Donald J. Trump feels about China and the leadership in China. And we also know that China, the United States, always going back and forth as far as which country is the number one country, which country is the powerhouse of all countries. And it's always, for the most part, a tug of war between the United States and China. And so in order to basically solidify that number one spot, what do? You cut off resources to your closest competition. And the closest competition to the United States is China. And so, yeah, China gets oil from other countries, Russia, Iran. But Venezuela and China has the closest relationship when it comes to Venezuela importing oil to other countries or exporting oil to other countries. So cut off the oil supply. And we also have to look at the fact that China, their largest suppliers of oil is Russia and Iran. It's two of the largest suppliers of oil to China. Okay. And so I say this because it's all going to come together. Just listen to him. I know it may sound like I'm all over the place, but it's going to come together. So we know that Donald J. Trump wants to take over Greenland. And why would he want to take over Greenland? Because Greenland would basically be like a border, or not, I'm sorry, not a border, but a barrier between the United States, Russia, and China. And so if the United States was able to take over Greenland, that means that the United States would be able to place military personnel, possibly build military bases and things in Greenland. So when this war that's on the cusp of happening at some point, once that war jumps off, then Greenland is a good point of the United States being able to attack Russia, to be able to attack China. So that's why, and he said it, he's not hiding anything, but he said it numerous times, but that's why Donald J. Trump wants the United States to take over Greenland. And so what's going to be the cause of this war? Like I say, one, Donald J. Trump trying to cut off supplies to China. Two, Donald J. Trump has an ongoing issue with Iran. He recently bombed a nuclear facility in Iran. And we have to understand is that Iran is not doing this on their own. Iran is getting their information or the concepts and the process of developing these nuclear weapons. They're getting that information from China. China is helping Iran build up their nuclear facilities. Iran is not doing this on their own. So we have to look at that as well. And then not only that, we have where Donald Trump recently made a statement about going into Iran if the Iranian government decides to start killing their citizens over there over the protest that's going on. In which, for starters, Iran is on the other side of the world. Why on earth is Donald Trump even worrying about Iran and the protests that are going on in Iran? Because those protests that are going on in Iran, they do not affect the United States at all. That's an internal conflict that Iran is having right now. But let's think about why he would say that and why he would want to put troops on the ground in Iran. Let's think about it, y'all. And I'm pretty sure you've come up with your own conclusion is that, all right, well, if this is Donald J. Trump's thinking, if he can put boots on the ground in Iran, there's a possibility that the United States would be able to take over Iran, be able to take over the Iranian government, in which it's a proven fact that that's what this guy's mindset is when it comes down to going into any country. Already taken over Venezuela. He said he wanted to take over Canada. He's saying how he wants to take over Greenland. And so if he puts boots on the ground in Iran, then his plans are to try and take over Iran as well, which in doing so, in which is not going to happen because we have to understand for starters where Iran is located. Meaning that if the United States was to go into Iran and try to take over the Iranian government, we have to understand that the people of Iran is not going to allow that to happen. Those people don't want anyone governing them, if you see what I'm saying. They don't want to be under anyone's control. But Donald J. Trump doesn't realize that, and he thinks that using the excuse of going in and helping those people if they're being shot dead in the streets to convince the people of the United States that he would be going into that country for that reason, and that's a good reason to go into Iran. But it's bigger than that, like I said. He wants to control Iran. But like I said, Iran, the citizens, for one, is not going to allow the United States government to come in and run that country. They're not. It's going to be conflict on top of conflict. And then we have to understand there's other Middle Eastern countries around there with these terrorist cells that they are at some point in time, if this was to happen, they're going to attack Iran. And that's going to mean more loss of life, whether it's the Iranian people and or any American people that may go over there after the possibility of the United States being able to take over Iran. But then the third and the biggest thing is China. China is not going to allow that to happen, United States. Donald J. Trump. China and Iran have close ties. Like I said, China gets majority of its oil from Iran. So China is not going to, for one, you're already cutting off their supplies from Venezuela. You would have to be crazy to think that they're going to allow the United States to completely basically cut off majority of their oil supply if the United States goes into Iran. And we have to also note the fact that Iran and China made an agreement a few years back, and it includes a lot of different things. And so in order to get that information, go look it up. Look up the agreement between Iran and China that they made and read the details on that. And you'll see why China would not allow the United States to go into Iran and take over Iran. But once again, that's why Donald J. Trump wants to take over Greenland. Because it's all mapped out. It's all right in front of us on what this guy truly wants to do and what he's after. But in doing so, he is going to cause the United States to fall. And when this country falls, it's going to fall hard, and it's going to be extremely difficult, if at all, for this country to be able to get back up. Because the United States is a giant, if you understand what I'm saying. And the bigger you are, for one, the harder you fall. Two, the more difficult it is for you to get back up. But Donald Trump doesn't care, y'all. He doesn't care. He wants to solidify his presidency in history, if there's even any history after all of this is said and done. But he wants to go down in history as, for one, the first president to stay in office for more than 2 terms. And he also wants to go down in history as being this all-powerful president that took over countries and made other countries bow down to him. And it's not going to happen. He's tried that with Russia. He spoke of the leader of Russia as if they were just buddies, as if they go out and drink together or whatever, have lunch together and dinner together. But Putin doesn't think the same way. Putin is just using him. He's using him. You hear what I'm saying? He doesn't care about a relationship with Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump means nothing to that guy. And I said it last time that Putin and China are 100 times closer than what Putin in the United States is. So if, once again, and then not only that, Russia and China gets a lot of oil from Russia. Okay, meaning that China is giving Russia and Putin a lot of money in order to get this oil, correct? And so once again, if you cut off supplies to China, China's economy starts to dwindle. That's going to affect not only China, that's going to affect Russia, that's going to affect other countries that depended on China. So now you have created this monster, Donald J. Trump. You have created this monster that you will not be able to destroy. Yeah, the United States may be able to go to war with Venezuela and win that war. The United States may be able to go to war with an Iran or an Iraq and win that war. But when you start mentioning countries like Russia, you start mentioning countries like China, that's a whole nother ball game, my friend. Whole nother ball game in which the United States cannot win. Whether it's a one-on-one situation where it's United States versus China or United States versus Russia, that's going to be a war that this country has not ever seen before, because it's not only involving extremely powerful militaries, it's involving militaries with nuclear weapons and missile capabilities to be able to shoot a missile from all the way over in their country to reach over into the United States. And that's something that we are truly not prepared for, and what we truly don't want to see happen. But with this rhetoric and the way that this guy thinks, this is what's going to happen. And it's upsetting to see how many people continue to applaud this guy for his actions. And a lot of them only do it in order to seem like they truly like this guy. You get what I'm saying? They're just doing it because of business deals, which is still ridiculous that you will put money over lives. And that's what's going on. They're putting money and power over people's lives, y'all. And it's a terrible place, a terrible time right now. Even though it may seem peaceful, there's a lot of turbulent weather that's on the way. And we have to be prepared for these things, y'all. This guy is sitting here boasting about how he now wants to go into the White House, where he's already there, but he wants to now remodel another part of the White House. He's already spending $400 million to build a stupid ballroom. And then he's going to turn around and he wants to remodel more of the White House with whose money? It's not his personal money that he's using, y'all. It's the money that the government could be using in order to help the citizens of this country, in order to help save lives. And he could have been putting that money towards the health care that he decided to cut off because he felt like it was draining the government's pocket. The government's wallet was being drained because hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were getting health care at an extremely discounted rate so that they could live better lives. And he thought that that was a wrong thing to be done. But yet he's taking, once again, it's $400 million to build a ballroom, y'all. That West Wing probably is going to cost another $200, $300, $400 million, which he's almost at $1 billion at that point. $1 billion remodel on the White House, but yet you refuse to put $1 billion into healthcare in order for people to have healthcare for 5 more years or 10 more years, however long that $1 billion would have went. But it would have went a lot further than remodeling the darn White House. But once again, people are still applauding the nonsense. It's crazy out here right now, y'all. This guy, it's almost as if he's delusional. And the people around him are delusional as well, because they sit there and they listen and they believe in the things that he's telling them. And it's no common sense being used on his part, nor on the parts of the people around him and the people that support him. I don't know if they're just starstruck, if they're just drunk off the so-called charisma that this guy has, because he's not charismatic whatsoever. Maybe to the women, I don't know. Maybe because I'm a man, I don't see it. Because all it sounds like to me is that this guy just rambles on and on and on. He'll be speaking on one thing and then he flies off of the subject and he gets lost for a moment. In which we all may do it, but come on, y'all. This is supposed to be the leader of over 300 billion people in this country. And my goodness, he is not doing a good job at it whatsoever. But I also want to touch on the election fraud case that was once being held here in Georgia. The Atlanta, over in Fulton County, is where this was going on at, in which we all know that case got thrown out, dismissed, whatever you want to call it. And so now, not only the people that were involved, but Donald J. Trump has sued, Fulton County for their legal fees. And so apparently Fulton County is going to have to come up with hundreds of millions of dollars in order to pay these people's legal fees back, the money back for their legal fees. And so reason why I want to touch on this, because me and my wife was talking earlier, and then she made me start thinking, because that call that Donald Trump made to whomever that was at the time in Georgia, saying that you need to find these votes, yada, 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 and all this other nonsense, was, of course, at the end of his term, which I think the end of his term would have been, 2020? And so the case got thrown out or dismissed because the Fani Willis, and I don't know what her title was in all this, and I think the guy was called the special prosecutor or something. I don't even know his name. They were in a relationship in which that relationship, you can't have a relationship apparently when it comes down to the same people prosecuting the same case. And so that made it go into a frenzy. And like I said, eventually caused this whole case that they had a strong case against this guy to where he should have been prosecuted for this, got thrown out. But let's look at this, y'all. The guy that was dating Fani Willis or whatever they called themselves doing, they started dating in 2022, y'all. Meaning that they came together after the phone call, after the whole thought of them prosecuting Donald J. Trump and whomever else for the so-called election fraud or voter fraud or whatever the description of it is. So think about that after the fact. So what needs to be done is that needs to be an investigation into the guy that was dating Fani Willis. There needs to be an investigation on him, in which nobody's brought this up as far as I know. No one's even thought about investigating this guy. Did they even look at the details of this relationship, or all they did was say, hey, they were in a relationship. That's an excuse to be able to call this whole case off. And that's what they did. They just ran with it. So look into that guy. See what type of connections he may have had with maybe not Donald Trump, but maybe somebody that's around Donald Trump, the legal team. Maybe some of the people that were in the case. But I guarantee you that there is some connection between that guy and Donald Trump or somebody that was involved in that case, and not from a prosecution standpoint. Of course, we know there's a connection from that. But I'm talking about an actual relationship, business-wise maybe even, to where this guy probably was an implant, y'all. This guy more than likely was paid to sweep Fani Willis off of her feet because they probably knew her situation. She working all these hours, which is no excuse for a woman if she's married, because I believe that she was married. For a married woman to go off and be sleeping around on her husband. So she's wrong. She is wrong. She is not a saint, if that's the case, because I'm not really sure. Maybe I should have looked into that. But if this was a single woman and this guy comes in and they know that she's single, or she may have been going through some type of problems in her marriage, which still don't make it right for her to cheat on her husband. I don't care what kind of problems you have. But they knew something, and they sent him in because they knew how smooth he probably is, or how easy it is for him to get the women that he's after. You know, these people do a lot of homework, y'all. These people just don't go and find some random person on the street and throw them into the middle of something and think that they're going to succeed at what they're putting that person in there for. So this guy is an implant, y'all. He was paid because they knew that when it all come out, that this case was not going to have any legs to stand on. So we have to realize that Donald J. Trump has his hands in everything. He has his hands in all of this stuff, y'all. He's manipulating the press. He's making people refer to him in certain ways just because they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of people threatening them, whatever their fear is. Because here recently there was a governor, whatever this guy is, a mayor, and he was addressing the House. And he was talking about how the people and he was a Republican, he is a Republican, in which I don't think after this will be his last term. And so he was saying how that uprising at the White House, that those people that got off and they were giving pardons, that how wrong that was. And then in the same sentence, in the same breath, he turns around and says how he is such a supporter of Donald J. Trump, though, that if Donald J. Trump was to run for a third term, he would vote for him. He would support him. And you know who he blamed the pardons on? He said he blamed the pardon on the people that are around Donald J. Trump, saying that they gave him bad advice. Do you not realize, Governor, whoever you are, that Donald J. Trump doesn't take advice from anyone? Anything that Donald Trump does, he does off of his own feelings, off of his own concepts, or whatever it may be. And that's how he makes decisions. It's no one telling him, other than maybe these little young rappers and stuff like that, hey, get him off, because he got a strong support team. But those people that went to that White House and did what they did, that was all Donald Trump's doing. It was his doing and causing them to go and attack the people at the White House and tear up the White House. It was also his own doing in pardoning these people as well. So, Mr. Governor, Mayor, whoever you are, I'm glad this is your last term. You need to sit down somewhere, because what they're doing is that they think by using this psychology, these different psychological methods, that they can continue to convince the ones that have been followers of Donald J. Trump to continue following him, and also change the minds of the ones that don't like Donald J. Trump and think that the things that he's doing are wrong. They're trying to convince these people, y'all, because it's all psychology. How can you say that it was wrong for these people to be pardoned when the pardon was done by the president? And then you turn around and say, oh, I support Donald J. Trump, though. Basically saying how good of a leader he is, how good of a president he is, and how you would vote for him if he ran for a third term. Come on. Y'all, we cannot be fooled. I guess these people in politics really look at the citizens of this country as if we don't think at all. I really do. I really believe that they think that we are a bunch of imbeciles, a bunch of idiots that don't know how to read nor write, and that everything that they tell us we're going to believe. But we have to look at the details of everything that these people are putting before us. So, y'all, I just had to come on here and say that we are headed down a path of destruction. And it's not our fault, even though it is majority of the people in this country's fault, because they decided to vote for Donald J. Trump. But then we also have to look at the fact that all of this stuff, it's scripted in a sense. It was meant for Donald J. Trump to get back in office again. It was a known fact that he was going to get back in there again. I mean, let's just look at the details of that election. That was one of the weirdest elections I have ever seen, y'all. In which it went from Biden to him basically in a matter of 4 years, almost losing all of his cognitive senses and abilities. His mental state just went down. His physical health went down, and it turns out, and it's sad that he ended up basically being diagnosed with cancer. How true that is, I don't know. I would think that they wouldn't lie to us. But once again, it is not only the media, but it's the politicians and the politics and the government that's controlling the media. So they want us to think that it's the media, but it's the government that's controlling a lot of the media as well, y'all. I'm talking about on television. So we have to understand that. It ain't fake news all the time. It's fake news because that's what the government wants it to be. And then here comes Kamala Harris. You see what I'm saying? And nothing against Kamala Harris, but we have to understand that she had 2-3 things going against her. She's a woman. She didn't have any time for the most part to campaign, to build up any funds. She was thrown into the fire. And then she's not only a woman, but she's a black and Indian woman that's married to a white man. She had all these things going against her. And I'm not saying once again that she was right for the job either, because they all are corrupt. All of them. Because Kamala has said some things and done some things that are truly ungodly, if you see what I'm saying, to where Jesus would not agree with what she was saying and her thoughts on things. And so that's the problem with the Democrats. But the Republicans are no better. They sit there and say how conservative they are, how Christian-based they are, and all this other nonsense. But we have to understand that this is not the times of when, if you go against what God say, that he kills you on the spot. This is not the times of that. We are in a time where Jesus has come and gone. And Jesus' philosophy was not war. Jesus' philosophy was not, hey, go out and take what you want. And so I say that because these people are far from Christian-like. Because they are still living in the times of Moses in the Old Testament and all this other stuff. And that's not the times that we are in. So don't believe them when they tell you that they're Christian. A Christian is not going to be blowing. I don't care how much drugs someone is bringing into this country. A Christian is not going to give word to somebody else to blow up and kill people in the middle of the ocean. That's not God-like. That's not Christian-like. So stop being fooled, y'all. They're using the word Christian, in order to, once again, play with your mind by using these words. They know these catchphrases, these what they call them is certain words, but they're using these things in order to continue to control the way that you see things. And I don't want to go too far back, but we all know when slavery and stuff was around, that all those slave masters and things called themselves Christians. They went to church every Sunday, but yet after they went to church, they would go get drunk. They would beat the men and take advantage of the women, but yet they were Christians. So we have to look past that word, y'all. We have to look at the fruit that these people are producing. And then you'll truly know whether or not someone is Christian. Just like these fake pastors. I'm not going to go too far into it. But you see through the nonsense. When they start asking you for, we need more money, we need an offering, you get 3 and 4 offerings in one church service, or they end up having 2 and 3 church services, and in each church service they have 2 and 3 offerings, and then they have tithes in each service. And then if you go to their service, the things that they talk about, it's always about how can you be more successful? How can you make more money? And they'll start off and it sounds good, and in the end it ends up being, how can you give to the church? What can you offer the church monetary wise? So we have to stop being fooled, y'all. They're using Jesus and they're using the Bible, and they are manipulating people. Just like Jesus said, when he comes back, there are going to be so many of them, and we're going to see it, y'all. There's going to be so many people that people thought were just the most holiest people on earth. They're going to be on their hands and their knees begging Jesus to get into heaven, and Jesus is going to tell them, I never knew you. They're going to be like, man, we had church on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday, God. We prophesied to certain people and it came true, God. And he going to tell them, I don't know who you are, man. I don't know you. The Holy Spirit never even visited your church. So don't be fooled, y'all. Don't be fooled. We have to learn the word for ourselves. We have to be able to see through the lies that the government is feeding us. Because they have learned that the easiest way to convince people to do the things that you want them to do is to lie to them. Because in a lot of cases, if we told people the truth about things, then we may not get what we want. We may not get the results that we're looking for because we told the truth. You get what I'm saying? You take something out, you steal something out the store, right? And then, and they say, well, did you steal this? If you tell them yes, then you may end up going to jail. If you tell them yes, then your mom and your dad may end up whooping you, right? Or you may end up on punishment. But if you tell them no, then there's a possibility that you may get away with something that you did, which was wrong anyways. And this is where we are, y'all. This is where we are in this society, to where people tell more lies than truth because they have figured out that because of the hellish state of civilization right now, that by evil basically taking over, that lies is going to be the easiest way to get what you want. So sometimes, or most times, if not all the time, we have to just rely on the truth, whether we get the result that we're looking for or not. But at least you know that you told the truth. But y'all take it easy out there. I just had to come on here to say these things. And I ended up in speaking of Jesus and speaking of God, because in the end, Jesus and God are going to be the only ones, for the most part. They're going to be people that Jesus and God will send for us to get the word from, or send to us so that we can go in the right direction. But we have to rely on the word of God and the word of Jesus, y'all, because following after these politicians and a lot of these mega churches and things like that, no. And speaking of mega church, what just came out about this guy? He was a singer, and how he's taking advantage of men, how he used the word of God to say how Jesus and the word of God changed him from liking the same sex to him basically liking women like he's supposed to going back and taking advantage of a man. So y'all, we have to be careful. We have to. Because a lot of people will manipulate you to get what they want from you. And with us being on that brink of war, even though they're not telling us this, y'all, it's there. And it's closer than what it's ever been. We had him sitting here talking so negative about Biden, saying how Biden was going to be the start of World War III, in which that's not the truth. It's Donald J. Trump. You see what I'm saying? You ever seen somebody that would say something about somebody else and they be the one that caused the problem, or they be the one causing the problem, but they say it was somebody else? That's Donald J. Trump. Can't stand up for nothing that he does that is wrong. It's always somebody else's fault, in which that is not a sign of a good leader, nor the sign of a good man. That's the sign of a coward. And that's what we have in the White House, is a coward and a bunch of cowards surrounding him. And the people that are willing to shoot, kill, and steal for him are cowards as well. And I'm about to get off here, but I just want to make one more comment or statement about that lady that was shot and killed in Minnesota. To where, and it's not just ICE agents. It's not just the police. It's people with guns. People who carry guns everywhere they go, they're itching to shoot that gun, period. And like I said, I don't care if you're law enforcement or if you're just a so-called regular citizen. People who walk around with guns on their waist, so when they're leaving their home or getting out their car and they're putting that gun on their waist, their thoughts are, if somebody does something that I'm gonna shoot them. That's why they putting the gun on their waist, y'all. It's not just about protecting yourself. How many years have we not had this open carry law and people didn't walk around with guns or anything like that? And they felt protected to a certain extent. So now with this open carry, and they knew what they were doing. They literally gave the okay for people to go around and shoot and kill other people if they have a disagreement. Because people don't fight anymore. Some people are afraid to lose a fight. Yeah, it may be embarrassing to lose a fight, but I'd rather lose a fight than to lose my life. But this is where we are right now, y'all. And who came up with the open carry law? I believe it was under Donald Trump's first term that they allowed this to happen. We have to look at all the signs, y'all. And I said it was going to be quick, but now I done got into something else. We have to look at all the signs. Donald J. Trump and his people passed the open carry law. And why would they do that, y'all? Why would you outright give a law where you don't have to show license or anything like that? You don't even have to have a license. You just got your gun on you. And if you feel threatened, you can shoot and kill somebody. Because he's not just wanting to, he's turning this country into a country of lawlessness in a sense. Because he doesn't even obey the laws that were put in place for presidents. So if the people that support you see you not obeying the laws, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, well, we can get away with it too. My president gets away with it. My president, he'll come pardon me if I do something and I say I did it for his sake. He'll come and get me out of prison. This is where the United States is right now. And so I say all that because that young lady, however, that got shot and killed, it happened. And we can't change it. But if we just look at the situation, y'all, all that guy had to do was come around on the other side of the truck. That's all he had to do, y'all. Because the time it took, and yeah, it only may take a couple of seconds or whatever, had you to reach, pull your gun, shoot your gun. But the time it took him to reach and pull that gun out was the same amount of time it would have taken him to have gotten out of the way of that vehicle, y'all. But everybody want to say, oh, he was defending. Not everybody, but you want to hear these people say he was defending himself. He was defending himself. He wasn't square in the middle in front of the truck when she was going. Because if it was, it would have really hit him. Even if the truck just tapped him, y'all, that may, and I believe he hit it with his hand. It didn't even hit him. And the wheel was turned. By him shooting her did not change the fact that the truck was not going to hit him. If you see what I'm saying, y'all, because the wheel was already turned. When he shot her, he then moved to the side by her window and shot 2 more times at the lady. And she wasn't shooting at him. She was driving a vehicle. 1 shot, maybe. 2 shots, now you're overkill, dog. And he didn't have to shoot her the first time. You see what I'm saying? But because a car can kill, I get that. They want to use the excuse of self-defense. And because he's an ice age, because there was a regular person on the street, that situation would have went a little differently too. That person would have been sitting in jail. That person wouldn't be getting off with shooting and killing somebody because they felt threatened and that the car was going to run them over. But now this lady is dead. You have a government that is basically denouncing her, not denouncing, but giving praise to the guy that killed the lady, saying he was just doing his job. He was run over so many months ago and had X amount of stitches put in him. So how would you feel? Like, what if he's shell shocked? He shouldn't be out there anyway. You see what I'm saying? If there's something that's going to come up that's going to cause him to react in a way that's going to kill people, he shouldn't be an agent anymore. Think about that, y'all. When you have police and the military to where they go through something, a bombing or something, or shooting, and any loud noise that they hear causes them to react in a way that's dangerous, not only for them, but for the people around them, then they're not going to be able to do their job anymore, y'all. So if this guy's having flashbacks because he was he had gotten dragged or whatever have you, and ended up with so many stitches somewhere in his body, he shouldn't be out there anyway. And I'm gonna tell you something, man. These guys, they try because they want to do their job so badly, in opposed to, and it happened here in Georgia recently, that I want to say something about, because the guy, he was pulled over, he got out the vehicle, and then he got back in the vehicle, and instead of the police just stepping back and saying, hey, go on, let him pull off. We got his tag number. I got a police car. I can call my backup. They can come out and assist me in helping capture this guy. They want to reach in the car, try to grab the keys, try to hold on to the door. Why do all of that, y'all? Let's use common sense. Yeah, you risk your life every day when you are a police officer. You risk your life when you do those types of jobs. I understand that. But you also have to use self-control and common sense to where you're not risking your life in every situation. In certain situations, in opposed to you risking your life and being run over, just step back. Let him pull off. Let him go. You caught him anyways down the road. So you didn't have to reach in the car and get dragged down the street 300 feet. Use common sense. But this is where we are, y'all, as a society. There's no more common sense being used. People don't even think things through thoroughly. And like I said, the shooting of that lady was unexcusable. It should not have happened. He did that because that's what he wanted to do. They want a situation to arise to where they can use the excuse of force. That's why, that's what they want. Like I said, when they put that gun on their hip, when they're putting that gun in the holster, they're thinking about shooting somebody. And that goes for anybody that carries a gun. Anybody. I used to work in the car dealership, like I said. And it was this guy came in, right? And he had a gun on him. I could see it. We could see the gun on him. Had the gun on him, right? He comes in. I greet the guy. He doesn't respond. That's fine. I've dealt with that on numerous occasions. I've been a service advisor for 10 years. So I get that. Some people just ain't in the mood, right? So I asked him, well, how can I help you? You know, and apparently the rubber trimming on the car door was coming off, right? And so I was explaining to him, well, hey, you know, the shop is really busy right now. You know, we may not be able to get it looked at today and all. And he goes slap off on me. I ain't asked you all that. I got this brand new car in the trimming coming off of my car door and I can't close just going off. And my thing is, if the guy didn't have the gun, y'all, his response would not have been like that. But he was looking for a reason in order to use that pistol that he had. So he was expecting me to get aggressive with him, possibly get physical with him so that he could use his gun. I'm telling you, the gun, some people get superpowers when they get a pistol on their waist. But without that gun, they're some of the meekest, calmest people that you would ever know, because they don't fight. They don't want to fight. They just want to shoot and kill. And that's what that guy was, in which I just didn't take it sitting down. I responded back because I don't fear guns. I done looked down the barrel of guns many a times in my life, which I'm not boasting about. I was shot by a .22 when I was 11, 12 years old. I had been shot at several occasions growing up in the hood. So that was not my fear. Even though I don't want to die, you know, I don't want to lose my life behind ignorance, because that's stupid for me to end up getting shot and killed because a guy getting mad over trimming on his door. But I say all that, y'all, because this society is a weak society, y'all. This society has gotten weaker and weaker over the years. It may have gotten more violent, which some people look at violence as strength. Violence is a weakness. Growing up, we would take a black eye, a busted lip, a busted nose, and we would take that butt kicking, and we would go on with our day. But now that people can't do that. You get in a fight with somebody, you beat them up, they want to go and grab a gun and come back and shoot you because they lost the fight. You got beat up and you cannot live with the embarrassment, so you go and get a gun. And it just didn't start today. It started in my generation. And like I said, I'm finna get off of here, but I want to say this because it was one day, and at this time, I would say probably, I don't even think we were teenagers yet. I would say we were probably still, I can't remember exactly, probably 11, around that age, 10, 11 years old. And I had a neighbor. And so me and him, we would chill out. We were sitting in the front yard. And so we had these projects or apartments that were across the creek from our neighborhood. And so they would just come across the creek because there was a pathway that led from their apartments over into our neighborhood. And it was right there by our houses. So they would come out and, we'd be cool with some of them. So it wasn't always a problem. So we had the candy lady. Guy went to the candy lady, bought some popcorn. He come back, he shared with us. We thought it was cool. We didn't take his popcorn. We didn't bully him or anything like that. We ate the popcorn together. We thought it was fine. He goes back to the apartments. He goes and gets his cousin. Him and his cousin comes back, and I guess they thought we were going to be afraid of him. So me and my buddy was like, well, what's happening? Y'all want to do it? We can do it. As far as fight. And they decided not to fight us. They went back to their apartment, so we left it alone. Long story short, the guy who was sharing the popcorn with us, he because they had guns over. It was actually somebody from those apartments that shot me with the 22 and shot at me a few times, but I didn't carry guns back then. I still don't really. And so he comes back. He's got a pistol all of a sudden. And I mean, we didn't run or nothing, but he was showing us this gun, showing us that, hey, y'all, if y'all fight me, I'm going to shoot one of y'all. But I say it started in my generation, and it's just gotten worse over time, y'all, to where now people don't even fight. They don't even threaten you with fighting. They want to go and grab the gun and they want to shoot you. They want to reach in their little bag because everybody carrying these little bags now with their pistol in it. But this is where we are. This is the society that Donald J. Trump wanted. This is the society that he created. And then he creates a society like this, and then he wants to use the excuse of violence being rampant in certain areas and certain communities in order to send in the National Guard, showing people that, hey, at any given time, I can send the Dorn Army into your state, and we can take over your state. This is just the National Guard I'm sending in here. But I could go in and send the full-fledged military into your state if y'all get out of line. And I could militarize your community and put y'all on lockdown. Y'all, it's all playing out right in front of us. And once again, these are for the ones that supported Trump. Wake up. See the light at the end of the tunnel and get away from supporting this guy. Because he is not good for you. He is not good for your family. He is not good for your neighbor. He's not good for anyone. But like I said, y'all take it easy out there, man. There's probably so much more I could talk about. But y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. And I'll talk to you soon.